217 Recovery Podcast. Welcome. It is the 4th of December, 2019. I'm Corey Winfield, and I'm here with Courtney Quick from Skywood Recovery. And Courtney just said the most badass line I've ever heard from a woman. What was it again? Do you remember?
Something along the lines of be a grown-ass man and pull your dick out of your vagina.
Whoa! I like it. And that's how we start the interview today. But, she said it like with passion and hardcore, so we're just having a really passionate conversation, really getting into talking about recovery, helping people, and what I do, what she does. And do you want to tell my mom, because she listens, what you do, Courtney?
Absolutely. So I am the business development representative for Skywood Recovery. We are located in Augusta, Michigan, which is just outside of Kalamazoo. We are a residential treatment facility with a couple different levels of care. We offer partial hospitalization, residential. We have an IOP in the Detroit area. We do detox and stabilization.
Nice.
Whole lot of stuff to choose from.
And what's the website?
The website is skywoodrecovery.com.
All right, that's very simple.
Very simple. We also have Facebook page as well.
Nice. And we'll have links to their website, too, on our resources page at 217recovery.com soon. So check back there as well. Now, you're not an addict.
I am not an addict. However, I am an ex-spouse of an addict. So Corey and I have had a conversation in regards to what has brought me into the career that I'm in. So I guess I'll just recap that a little bit for you guys. So in 2009, I married my ex-husband. He was a veteran, or is a veteran, I should say. Suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder from being in Baghdad in 06-07. Came home. Of course, he didn't need any help. There was nothing ever wrong with him. And I was young and naive at the time. Didn't really know that about addiction and substance abuse by any means. We eloped before his second deployment. He came home on leave. We got pregnant, and then he came home, and the drinking and everything started. Then about 6 months into him being home, he got injured while he was working in his civilian job. Landed himself in the ICU on a ventilator for a week, and then when he got out of the hospital, ended up getting addicted to opioids, Oxycontin, and again, young, naive, didn't know the difference. And as time progressed, it got worse to the point that I had to call the cops on him one night because he was so intoxicated and was making suicidal gestures. So he ended up in jail, and the only way I could get him out of jail that night was to get him set up with a counselor. The counselor that I ended up getting him set up with was a veteran himself that was able to get him through the VA disability process, ended up getting him 100% disabled from the VA. He was sober and clean for about 3 years. We had another child, and then ended up relapsing. He had surgery, hernia surgery, and just spiraled downhill after his surgery. And his friend was living with us at the time because he was struggling himself with his marriage. And so one night, I don't know what they were doing. I was busy taking care of our young children. And I came home from soccer, and he ended up killing one of his really good friends in my driveway at home. And short story to it is that he is now in prison for manslaughter due to a mental illness. So I went about 9 years dealing and learning about addicts and all of the different recovery units in Michigan and the VA system.
That was a lot. She told me the details of the story, and you said addicts you said it weird.
The what?
You said addicts.
Oh.
Addicts.
But
I don't know. You'll listen back and go, yeah, I did say addicts, didn't I? But I don't know. It just not being perverted, I'm just saying. But you told me the gory details and like what you had to go through and what you've seen, which, maybe down the road we'll have you back on. You can just tell your whole story about that, because that in itself is insane. And for you to have to be put through that, you're not an addict. You don't know what it's like to need that next drink or that next fix, or to know why I'm trying to get that next drink or that first drink. Why would I think that would be a great idea? You wouldn't know that, but you would know the pain from your side of the table. And
Corey and I have had the in-depth conversation in regards to the fact that I can't relate to an addict. I have no perspective on what addicts deal with on a daily basis, or, even when you're in recovery, your day-to-day living. However, I do know from a spouse's point of view or a loved one, maybe not necessarily a parent, but watching your loved one deteriorate in front of your eyes and feeling helpless and not being able to do anything about it or help them, it's a horrible, horrible feeling. And that's something that I can sympathize with when a parent or a spouse or even a child calls me, looking for help for their loved ones. I understand what you're going through. Let me help you get through this hard time in your life, because honestly, I wish I had somebody there to help me through that really hard time in my life, because when that happened, it happened on October 1st, 2015, and for about 4 months, it was the darkest place of my life. I probably, maybe drank a little too much during that time, but never allowed myself to, go over the edge. But I also had 2 small children that I was responsible for. And, I think back on it, and a lot of times I think if I didn't have them, I don't know where I would have been, because I was solely responsible for them. Their father was completely out of the picture. It was me in a house all by myself. I had to be there for them and be able to supply, their day-to-day living needs. And, after that, and then going through the trial and then trying to put my life back together, we're 4 years, just over 4 years, and I finally have put my life back together. It's taken me 4 long years to get over it and sell my house. I found my now husband, and we blended our families together and had another child, and I found my career. It's from your point of view, I'm sure it's still hard. Every day you're digging yourself, trying to find your purpose. Yeah,
and the fact that, this is something that my mom shared with me, is that she would go into Meyer and people would, "How's Corey? Oh, I'm so sorry for you." So my mom knew that they were talking about her every time they'd say, "Oh, that's Corey's mom. He's a bad alcoholic," or however they would say it. And I'm sure you had some of that same, people, "Oh, that lady, oh, her ex-husband, killed that guy, and oh, this and that, and oh, what was she doing to him? What was it so bad in that house, what made him do it?" And, some of that negative thoughts from outside people. And I never, when I was drinking, and up until my mom told me, I didn't know. I didn't know that it affected my sister. My sister would go out in public, and people would say stuff to her, too, "Oh, how's Corey? Yeah." I didn't know it had that effect on people. I know I was hurting them every time I drank, but I didn't realize
the extent of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just you got your blinders on, right?
And it's good that you had the kids. You had other things, and at that point in your life, you're probably I've seen it all. I don't care what people are thinking about me. I don't have time for that.
I actually threw the news media off my property.
Wow.
Because they all wanted to. It was on the news. It was public. It was covered very widely. Even the trial was covered widely in the media. I had no private life. All of our text messages were exposed. All of our phone calls, every jail phone call is recorded, so that's stuff that the prosecutor uses for his benefit or not for his benefit, depending on which way it's going. So your personal life is no longer your personal life anymore.
Damn.
You're completely invaded. And here I am just trying to protect my kids. Luckily the sheriff's department in Charlevoix County is amazing, and they stepped up, and anytime I needed something, they were there to help me out, protect my kids at school, protect me, so it was nice to know that they were there watching out for us. But, nothing's private. And yeah, I mean, I moved my kids out of Boyne City. I moved them out of that school system because I didn't want them to have that stigma to follow them for the rest of their lives. I wanted them to have a clean slate and for me to have a clean slate. Like, I didn't want people to be like, oh my God, that's, who that is, right? Like, I don't want people to feel that way for me. I want to be known as Courtney, not as Matt's ex-wife.
Right.
So, I mean, even now people in Indian River are the story's starting to come out and they're starting to put it to light, but the thing is that they got to know me before they got to know my past.
Right.
So they know me for me, and that's just a part of me, but that's also a chapter in my life that I've closed, and I've moved forward into my new chapter. It might sound a little corny, but in the end, you have that pen in your hand and you have the ability to write the end of your story. Nobody else does. And it's completely up to you how that story ends.
Yeah.
And you choose that pathway. And so I think that's very important for people to remember. I mean, I could have taken a completely different pathway.
Yeah.
I remember not getting out of my pajamas and crying on my couch for days on end, and then like being mad at everybody in the world except for the one that was responsible for his actions. This is the VA's fault. This is his therapist's fault. This is so-and-so's fault. Like, why did this have to happen? No. Now that I'm on the other side of it, it's like it's nobody else's fault but his own. He had many chances to go to to go to rehab. He went to rehab and left rehab. It's not my fault. I think that's the huge thing from, a loved one's perspective, or, codependency, or, we get sucked into that, and then when it doesn't work out, it's all of a sudden our fault. And I lived with that for a really long time, and I harbored that guilt, and it ate me alive. But at the end of the day, it's not my fault. I'm not the one that went down to Battle Creek and then turned around and came home. I'm not the one that didn't choose to stay in the IOP. There's only so much as support system that you can do, and you really have to learn to let that go.
And people in recovery, they have to do it themselves. I had to do it myself. I waited for other people to fix me, and it just doesn't work that way. They'll give you the tools, and they'll tell you that over and over. We'll give you the tools that you need. You need to keep going. And they don't give you all the tools, but they give you a lot of them. A lot of the stuff you're just going to have to take day by day, experience by experience. You're going to have to go through it, and someone in recovery, just keep going through it, and that's the only way. And like you did, you could have went route A, is be depressed. Oh, I got PTSD. The stuff I saw was crazy. Oh no, let me drink some of this. No, but you didn't. And same thing with me in recovery. I could still be like, well, I'm just an alcoholic, which I don't call myself an alcoholic. I call myself an addict, and I'm in recovery. But I could hide that, and I used to. And then I realized, no, I did radio for 20 years. I loved it. This is a passion of mine, and I'm passionate about recovery. Let's put the two together and start a podcast. I know how to do website stuff. I know how to do this. I know how to make contacts. Let's do it, and it just became a passion, and it gave me purpose. And it kind of sounds like, going back to school, finding that in you,
Yep.
And you're like, hey, I can help these people. Because when you met your ex, He wasn't like that. That's not the guy that you married.
Oh, absolutely. I remember being in the courtroom during the trial, and obviously he was clean and sober during the trial because we were, just over a year since the incident happened. And I remember sitting in the witness stand and saying to the jury, that's my husband. That man sitting right there is my husband. That guy that you just saw in the video, I don't know who that is. That is a stranger to me that I have no idea. You might as well have just sent an angel or a demon down into his body and just took over every part of him, because I don't know who that is. But I think that's also something that's hard from, as a loved one's, from a support system, is that we know how good an addict is. Like, we know the good side of them, and we know how good they can be. And so that's why it's so hard for us to break those chains and just be like, where's my boundaries as a spouse or as a parent? Like, the codependency, I can no longer support you, I can no longer pacify you, I love you to death, but there is no more that I can do for you, and I have to cut you off. That is the hardest thing a spouse or a parent can ever do. But at the end of the day, sometimes that's what we have to do. But it's so hard.
Yeah.